Ladies and gentlemen, there's a kind of man in this world who walks around thinking he knows it all, acting like he has all the answers. But in reality, he's walking straight into failure. A man like this is not wise, he is foolish. Today I want to talk to you about 6 signs of a stupid man. Because if we can recognize these signs, we can avoid becoming like him, and we can protect ourselves from his influence. A foolish man is the one who never stops talking. He is so consumed with his own voice that he never pauses to listen. He believes that the more he speaks, the smarter he sounds. But in reality, he is only proving his own ignorance. Wisdom doesn't come from speaking endlessly. It comes from listening, from understanding, from taking in the experiences and knowledge of others. When a man talks too much and listens too little, he misses out on opportunities to learn. Conversations become one-sided, and instead of growing, he remains stuck in his own limited perspective. Have you ever tried to give advice to someone who just won't stop talking? Before you can even finish a sentence, they interrupt with their own thoughts, their own stories, their own opinions. They are not interested in what you have to say. They are only waiting for their turn to speak. And in doing so, they rob themselves of the wisdom that could have helped them. The problem with always talking and never listening is that it creates a false sense of knowledge. A foolish man may believe he is the smartest person in the room simply because he dominates the conversation. But real intelligence isn't about how much you say. It's about how much you understand. The wisest people in the world are those who listen more than they speak. They ask questions. They absorb information. They pay attention to the lessons life is trying to teach them. A man who refuses to listen also damages his relationships. People don't enjoy being around someone who never listens. It's frustrating to be in a conversation where your words don't matter, where you feel unheard and unvalued. Over time, this behavior pushes people away. Friendships suffer, family connections weaken, and professional relationships are ruined. No one wants to work with someone who never considers other perspectives. No one wants to build a future with a person who only cares about their own voice. Not only does a foolish man hurt his relationships, but he also limits his success. In every area of life, whether in business, relationships, or personal growth, the ability to listen is a key factor in achieving greatness. Leaders who listen gain the trust of their teams. Husbands who listen build strong marriages. Friends who listen form deep and meaningful bonds. But a man who talks too much and listens too little closes the door to these blessings. True wisdom comes from humility, from understanding that you don't have all the answers. It comes from realizing that every person you meet knows something you don't. The ability to listen is a gift. It allows you to grow, to gain insight, and to build strong connections. A foolish man will always be in love with the sound of his own voice, but a wise man understands that silence, when used correctly, is more powerful than 1,000 empty words. Foro, you said, explain to an topic up to 500 words without headings and ladies and gentlemen. Chat GPT said. A foolish man is always ready for an argument. He doesn't seek understanding. He only wants to prove himself right. It doesn't matter what the topic is, politics, sports, relationships, or even the smallest, most insignificant matters. He will find a way to turn it into a debate. He is not interested in solutions or wisdom. He is only interested in winning. But what he doesn't realize is that constant arguing doesn't make him strong. It makes him look insecure and immature. People who argue without purpose are often driven by their ego. They believe that backing down means weakness, so they keep pushing even when the discussion is no longer meaningful. They refuse to listen to other perspectives and get defensive the moment someone disagrees with them. This kind of behavior doesn't build relationships, it destroys them. No one enjoys being around a person who always needs to be right. Instead of fostering healthy discussions, they create unnecessary conflict, pushing people away. A wise person understands that not every disagreement needs to become a battle. There are times when it is better to walk away rather than waste energy on arguments that lead nowhere. Foolish man does not have this wisdom. He argues about things that don't matter, draining himself and those around. He may win the argument, but in the process, he loses respect, friendships, and opportunities for growth. Another dangerous trait of a man who argues without purpose is that he refuses to accept correction. Even when he is clearly wrong, he will fight tooth and nail to defend his position. Instead of admitting his mistakes and learning from them, he doubles down, becoming more stubborn and closed-minded. But life is not about proving yourself right all the time. It's about learning, improving, and becoming a better person. The ability to accept correction is a sign of wisdom, while the need to always be right is a sign of foolishness. This kind of man also wastes valuable time and energy, while others are working towards success, building relationships, and growing in wisdom. He is caught up in meaningless debate. He spends hours trying to prove a point that no one will remember tomorrow. Instead of moving forward, he remains stuck in a cycle of conflict. And the sad part is, many times he is arguing with people who don't even care about the issue. People who have already moved on while he is still dwelling on his need to be right. A person who always argues eventually finds himself alone. People grow tired of the constant negativity and pointless debates. They stop engaging, they stop listening, and they start avoiding him altogether. What he thought was a sign of intelligence or strength turns out to be the very thing that isolates him. A wise person knows that sometimes silence is more powerful than words, and walking away from an unnecessary argument is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign of true wisdom. 224, you said, explain 3RD topic up to 500 word without headings and IDs, and gentleman ChatGPT said, a foolish man never takes responsibility for his actions. When things go wrong in his life, he always finds someone else to blame. If he loses his job, it was his boss's fault. If his relationship fails, it was the other person's mistake. If he struggles financially, it's because of the economy, the government, or bad luck. No matter the situation, he refuses to look in the mirror and acknowledge his own role in his failures. This mindset keeps him trapped in the same cycle, repeating the same mistakes over and over again, because he never learns from them. Blaming others is easy. It allows a person to avoid accountability and shift the burden onto someone else. But avoiding responsibility does not change reality. If a man refuses to take ownership of his life, he will never be able to improve it. Growth only happens when a person is willing to admit their mistakes and learn from them. But a foolish man doesn't want to grow. He just wants to make excuses. He will say things like, people don't understand me, or everyone is against me, instead of realizing that maybe the problem is his own attitude, choices, or behavior. This kind of man struggles in every area of life. In his career, he cannot advance because he refuses to acknowledge his weaknesses and improve his skills. In his relationships, he constantly has conflicts because he never admits when he is wrong. His friendships suffer because people grow tired of excuses and lack of accountability. Over time, those around him begin to see through his words and recognize that he is simply avoiding responsibility. No one respects a person who always blames others. True respect is earned by taking responsibility, learning from mistakes, and working to become better. Another consequence of this mindset is that it creates a victim mentality. When a person constantly blames others, they start believing that life is unfair to them. They see themselves as victims of their circumstances instead of as people who have the power to change their life. This mentality leads to frustration, bitterness, and resentment. Instead of focusing on solutions, they focus on complaining. Instead of working hard to improve their situation, they waste time feeling sorry for themselves. This kind of thinking is dangerous because it stops progress before it even begins. A wise person understands that taking responsibility is not a burden. It is a path to success. When a man admits his mistakes, he gains control over his life. He is no longer waiting for someone else to fix his problems because he knows he has the power to change. Every successful person has failed at some point, but what separates them from failures is their willingness to learn, adapt, and move forward. Excuses might bring temporary comfort, but they do not bring lasting success. Growth begins the moment a person stops blaming others and starts taking responsibility. A man who understands this will rise above his failures, while a man who refuses will remain stuck in the same struggle. never realizing that the only person truly holding him. Follow, you said. Explain fourth topic up to 500 word without headings and ladies and gentlemen. ChatGPT said, foolish man believes he already knows everything. No matter what advice you give him, he will dismiss it with arrogance. If someone tries to correct him, he gets defensive. If life gives him lessons through failure, he refuses to acknowledge them. This kind of man is not interested in learning or growing. He is only interested in proving that he is right. But the truth is, the moment a person stops learning, they stop progressing. They may think they are wise, but in reality, they are limiting themselves and their potential. One of the biggest dangers of refusing to learn is that it leads to repeated mistakes. A man who is unwilling to grow will continue making the same bad choices, facing the same problems, and wondering why his life never improves. He might blame his circumstances, his family, or even luck, but the real problem is his unwillingness to change. No one is born knowing everything. Success, wisdom, and happiness all come from a willingness to learn. But when a person believes they have nothing left to learn, they close the door to improvement. This attitude also affects relationships. People respect those who are humble enough to listen and grow. A man who refuses to learn pushes people away because no one enjoys being around someone who thinks they are always right. He becomes difficult to work with, hard to befriend, and nearly impossible to teach. In the workplace, this type of man struggles because he doesn't take feedback seriously. Instead of improving his skills, he insists that he is already good enough. Over time, opportunities pass him by because no one wants to invest in someone who refuses to grow. Another problem with rejecting learning is that the world is constantly changing. New ideas, technologies, and ways of thinking emerge all the time. A person who is unwilling to adapt will soon find themselves left behind. They may once have been skilled or knowledgeable, but without continuous learning, they become outdated. This is why successful people, no matter how much they achieve, never stop learning. They understand that there is always more to know, always room to improve. Growth requires humility. It takes strength to admit that you don't know everything, but a foolish man sees this weak. He believes that asking questions or seeking help makes him look small, when in reality, it is the very thing that leads to greatness. The most successful people in the world are those who remain students of life. They read, they listen, they seek out wisdom from others. They understand that learning is not something that stops after school. It is a lifelong process. A man who refuses to learn is choosing to stay stuck. He is choosing to remain the same while the world moves forward. But those who are willing to grow, to listen, and to adapt will always find new opportunities, new successes, and new ways to improve their lives. The choice is simple. Stay the same and struggle, or learn and rise. Foro, you said, giving conclusion of this speech, ChatGPT said, a foolish man may believe he is strong, wise, and always right. But in reality, his actions reveal his weakness. He talks too much and listens too little, argues over meaningless things, blames others for his failures, refuses to learn, lets his emotions control him, and disrespects those around him. These habits do not make a man powerful, they make him small. True wisdom is not about winning arguments, proving others wrong, or avoiding responsibility. It is about listening, learning, growing, and treating others with respect. A wise man knows that success comes from humility and discipline. He takes responsibility for his life, learns from his mistakes, and controls his emotions instead of letting them control him. At the end of the day, every man has a choice. Stay stuck in foolishness or rise above it. Growth is a decision. Wisdom is a path. And those who choose to walk in wisdom will always find greater success, deeper relationships, and a life filled with purpose. The question is, which path will you choose? We can walk in wisdom or we can walk in foolishness. A foolish man may get attention for a while, but wisdom is what builds success. Let's choose to be wise. Let's choose to grow. And let's surround ourselves with people who lift us higher.